G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the AustrAlien Podcast. This week, we are going to be discussing the federal budget here in 2017. Just to date that, today is the 17th of May. As always, I am your host, TJ Hollis, and with me is the voice of the people, Mr. Sean Mills. How's it going, Sean? What is the poop with you, fella?
I don't know. We last week we had the federal budget, and we actually recorded our last episode on budget night, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it much, well, at all, which is great. Gives us a week. We've managed to digest this budget. Actually,
it also kind of gave it a bit of time to let the dominoes fall a little bit, I think, as well.
Yeah, very true, very true. Actually, I wanted to give a shout out at the start of the episode. I was just talking to you, TJ, before we started recording about this Beanies for Brain Cancer, which is a charity researching brain cancer. Very prevalent in society at the moment. About 1,200 people a year are dying from it. It actually came up because the NRL, the Rugby League, is running a round this weekend raising money for it, encouraging people to get onto the Beanies for Brain Cancer website. All the money goes to brain cancer. It only gets 5% of cancer funding. They say in the last 30 years there's been no improvement in the life expectancy of people with brain cancer. So it might not affect me or you, but it's eventually going to affect someone you know, and let's see what we can do about it.
I think that's a fantastic cause, and we both highly recommend that. Check it out. Just Google beanies for brain cancer and pick up a beanie for that. I will be doing that later tonight.
If you get a chance, if you get Fox Sports, check out on Fox League the League Life, which is the ladies panel show. They had Brett Camorley on tonight, which his wife died about within only a couple of months ago from brain cancer, and it brought a tear to my eye, and I'm a pretty heartless bastard, so definitely a cause worth supporting. So there you go. Let's talk about the budget.
Absolutely. Let's move on with the show now. Yep. And my first question for you, is, who do you think is the biggest winner out of this budget?
Ooh.
What segment? What segment of the Australian populace?
Okay, so the actual recipients of the budget measures and not the politicians.
Yes.
Okay,
because we all know that they're the winners, really.
Well, I don't know, but we can talk about that soon. That's a very good question. I think the biggest winners are, security and the NDIS funding is hugely a massive deal. So I think winners there are people with a disability or families of support networks of people with disabilities that would access that funding. I think that's a major winner. Small business owners, which they say employ, I believe, 60 or 70% of Australians are employed by small business. The tax cuts there, the progressive tax cuts there, should help small business at least afford to keep their staff, if not, the line is always that, they pay less tax, they can put on more staff. I don't know if that actually works, but it makes it easier for them, even if nothing else changes, to, keep paying their staff and keep people in jobs. So I think small business and disability are your two big winners. What about you? Do you think there are?
I think the big winners are anybody who's got health issues, and anybody who gets sick over the next couple of years. I think they're certainly big winners in the fact that they're adding extra medicines that work on schizophrenia, and that heart conditions are another one that they're adding a lot of extra medicines to the pharmaceutical benefit scheme.
Yep.
And I think the government has, they're announcing that they've struck a little bit of a deal with, is it Australian Medicines? No, Medicines Australia. I'm sorry, I correct myself there. That they're reducing the price of certain pharmaceuticals.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't hear that. So, that's great. That's great news because, the cost of medicine, I can just tell you, as I get older, I'm 40 this year, and, that's not old in the scheme of things, but, I find that I take more medicines now than I did when I was 20, and, my parents in their 60s now, and they take more medicines than I do, so these...
these
people on fixed incomes, on pensions and things like that makes a big deal. That's a massive difference between paying, $15 a week or $20 a week.
Absolutely. And in saying that, it's not everything. It's not everything that's going down, and some of them will go up as well.
Sure.
But it's something that helps a lot. That's going to help a lot of people, especially people who are on low incomes.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but also people who are getting sick, they're as weird as it is to call them a bit of a winner, but a winner in the budget thing. We're seeing the government lifting the freeze on the Medicare rebates.
Yep.
And it's they're trying to add more incentives for GPs to bulk bill. Yep. So we'll get more GPs of higher quality thinking that, okay, maybe bulk billing is a thing that we could do.
Yep.
That's going to take about 3 years for the freeze to be lifted, depending on each service, because they're doing it a few services at a time.
Yep.
So it's not some big crash on the budget.
Yeah.
But also the NDIS, it's being fully funded.
Yep.
Which is huge. This is something that's ultra important. And yes, we're all getting slugged a little bit more in our taxes.
Yep.
I think it worked out. I think I read it that it worked out. If you earn $50,000 a year, you're paying an extra $250 in tax.
Yep.
Just for the NDIS.
Yeah.
If you earn $100,000, you're paying $500.
Yeah, it's not a great deal of money in the grand scheme of things. What I like about it being put on as a Medicare levy increase is that it's fair to me. Someone earning $25,000, I'm not sure what the lowest cutoff for Medicare levy is, but someone earns saying $35,000 is going to pay out substantially less than someone earning $250,000. Because it's a flat rate. It's a very fair tax, I think. So, and it's not one that can be dodged with loopholes or anything like that. People just have to pay it. They don't have any choice in the matter. So,
absolutely, I think that's a very good thing. You're always going to be people who are going to argue that we should go towards a more American system of health insurance as opposed to socialized healthcare.
Yeah, well, those people are wrong.
Absolutely. Yes.
I
was going to put it in a way, kind of pointing out that the more that we spend in our own taxes on socialized healthcare, the less we have to spend in the long run.
Yeah.
As a country on it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was listening to, and this gets a little bit off track here, but I was listening to.
We would never do that.
Never. As always, and I got to put $1 in the jar because I'm about to quote the name Dan Carlin again.
Uh-huh.
As always, I was listening to Dan Carlin, long may he reign, and he was discussing the American system, because they do have a form of socialized healthcare.
Yeah.
And comparing it to systems from around the world and he was basically saying that they pay as a percentage nearly 3 times as much of their GDP towards socialized healthcare, and it is about 20% as effective as countries such as Australia's.
A lot of the problem, in my view, of the American system is that, yes, there's socialised healthcare in the respect that if you can't afford it, the government does something and helps out or whatever. But they just give you an insurance policy. That's all Obamacare was giving you an insurance policy, and the insurers were obliged to give it to you. So you're still dealing with you're still dealing with an insurance policy, whereas in Australia you're not. You just walk into the base hospital or a public hospital of some sort and they treat you.
Yeah.
So, you don't have to. I'll give you an example. My mother broke her foot the other week and went up to the base hospital. They were previously in private health cover, had been for years, but the premiums are just too high. Now they're retired. And so she broke her foot. She's broken it in 2 places, and she had to, they X-rayed it. They did like a bone density test or something like that, and put a massive moon boot on her, and there's been follow-up appointments where they've X-rayed it again and checking things are going all right, and don't we have to pin it? If they'd had to pin it, which they didn't, thank goodness, they would have just done that. In the private system, just the moon boot alone was like $400. And so that's just in the Australian system. If you translate that to the American system, there's still that bill for the $400 that they would retail that moon boot for comes out of your insurance policy, even if it's an Obamacare insurance policy.
And it's not just $400 because the cost in America for healthcare ranges from 5 to 15 times the price that we would pay here in Australia for the same operation.
They don't have the government pushing the prices down like we do in Australia. Things like the PBS and that push the price of healthcare down right across the board. They don't have that in America, so it's just insurance companies setting their own rates, and we see that in all the other insurance games in Australia, don't we? Like house insurance, if one goes up, all of them go up,
Yep.
And that's exactly, I think, what happens in America, and it's just got to the point where it's just about the dollar for these companies, and we won't get into Trump care because that would really get us off topic, but
absolutely,
crazy.
Okay, so let's go back to the federal budget here.
Yep.
Now, where there are winners, there are always losers as well. For my money, I think one of the biggest losers is university students and anyone who is a former university student who still has a HECS debt, because basically it's university fees are going up and up, and they're now saying that with this budget there's pretty much going to be, in the end, a fee increase of 1.8% just next year alone, and it'll be a 7.5% increase by 2022. So that really kind of works between an extra $2,000 to $4,000 for a 4-year course.
Yeah.
And not only that, and this is the one that I think scares me personally, not just for my own, where I am in life right now, but also for a lot of younger people, is that currently you are forced to start repaying your HECS debt at $55,000.
Correct, yeah.
From July next year, that number is reduced to $42,000.
Yep. That
is, obviously pre-tax.
Yeah.
But with the state of how much our cost of living, is skyrocketing every year at an amazing rate, to bring that down is just, it's dangerous. It's going to be dangerous for a lot of young people, a lot of people in that 35 and under segment.
Yeah.
I think it's just a very stupid move. It's going to hurt our country more than it helps, and you can't do this. You can't make this move without addressing the cost of living, without bringing the cost of living back down first, without bringing the cost of electricity and fuel back down, because these things are not only getting more expensive, they're getting more expensive exponentially.
Yep, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, you look at you look at the price of electricity at the moment. It's nuts. My electricity bill, and I must be honest, we use our air conditioners pretty liberally, so but even putting that aside, we would pay, I don't know, $600 to $700 a quarter, which is probably middle of the range for this area. That's a family with 3 children. Yeah.
I don't use my air conditioner quite liberally at all. I try not to use it.
Yeah.
I'm a single man living by himself in a 3-bedroom apartment.
Yep.
In a unit.
Yeah.
Sorry, one half of a duplex.
Mm-hmm.
My electricity bill is $900 a quarter.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? But my last electricity bill was, because we'd just recently moved houses, it was only for 45 days, so it was half a normal period, it was $660.
Yeah.
And I have no idea how it's that much. To the point I actually rang the electricity company and did a meter reading myself to make sure I hadn't been charged more than I should have.
Yeah.
So, crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Absolutely. So we need to get those costs of living down before we can start hitting what is one of the most vulnerable segments of society for money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they're one of the big absolutely one of the big losers.
They're a loser. I've actually sort of an upside of the university thing. I'm a bit undecided. I mean, I'm currently studying, so it actually really does affect me, and I'm currently undecided whether I think reducing the repayment level is good or not. But I don't know. University is facing a 2.5% efficiency dividend. Basically, they've got to cut 2.5% out of their budget, which I guess is what the federal government pays universities to run. So,
yep.
Without mentioning the name of the university I go to, and just speaking to other people that go to different universities or have been, I'm pretty sure there's a fair bit of wasted money, and that shouldn't be too hard to find. But they'll end up cutting the wrong things, as they always do. Yes,
because it's easier to cut. It's much easier to cut student services, and it's much easier to cut social programs for students than it is to cut, say, the wages of the people in charge.
Yeah. I'll throw out a random loser for you that you might be surprised that I would say this about is welfare recipients with the random drug testing. I think that is absolutely horrendously hideous idea.
I am 100% in agreement with you on that.
I knew you would agree with me. I just thought you might be surprised that I actually said it. But
honestly, I'm not.
Okay.
You're an intelligent person, and you're able to, as I've always said, and which is why I wanted to start doing this podcast with you in the first place. Mm-hmm. You're an intelligent person. You have the ability to think against party lines when party lines are in the wrong. Look at things and come up with your own judgments depending on what the facts are.
Yeah. Look, my opinion about job seekers, welfare, etc., is probably quite different now than it would have been 10 years ago before I worked in the industry, because I worked in employment services, as you know, for a long time.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking, the problem I've got is that currently Australia does really not have a lower... We've got a lower socioeconomic class of people, and that's just... I wish I could think of a better way to say that, but that's just what it is. But we don't have that next level down that America has, which is the, homelessness and crime, and that to any great extent. Not to say those things don't exist, but, as a class of people, we don't generally have that. Random drug testing and linking welfare payments to it basically establishes that.
Absolutely, it helps to create it.
It just means that, okay, if you can't get welfare and they're addicted to some illicit substance, where are they going to get their money? They're not just going to kick the habit. I know that's the idea. We want them to kick the habit and become productive members of society. So I don't actually have a problem with the thought, the theory behind it. I just have a problem with the way it's done, because it will not work. And it's just, they're just going to, not pay their rent. Or they're just going to they're just not going to pay their rent. They're just going to, get into petty theft and things like that to fund that substance abuse problem. So it just introduces that. Now, I think people with drug and alcohol problems, basically when you're looking for work, the government bases your level of funding and level of assistance that the government will give you through the job network, or whatever they call themselves now, on the number of barriers you've got to employment. And so the higher level of barriers are drugs, alcohol, all that sort of stuff. They already ask the customer, as we would call them, they ask the job seeker if they have a problem, or if they recognise they have a problem, and it does get them into a higher thing. And 9 times out of 10, they tell you, yeah, I drink every day. I've had this, I've sat in the room and I've asked these questions to job seekers. Part of that is they know they get extra funding, and that funding can be used to help them overcome those barriers. There's no point putting someone into a job or finding someone a job. And yes, there are jobs out there, and yes, I could get, some guy who's done labouring all his life. It's not too difficult to find a labouring job for them. But there's no point putting him into that job if he's still got a, 3 bottles of Jack a day habit. Because he's not going to keep the job. There's no sustainability. He's simply not going to keep the job. And then we penalise them for not keeping the job. It's not... The system as it is doesn't work now, but it's better than random drug testing and just cutting them off payments altogether. So,
well, my biggest concern with that is their families, and their in particular their children.
Yep.
Like, if you reduce the amount of money that you're giving this person who has a meth habit, like as an example.
Yep.
John's got a meth habit. He's also got 3 kids.
Mm.
If you reduce the money that he's getting, what's going to happen is he's going to have to find that money from somewhere else. So he's going to spend less money on his children on things such as food, like healthy food.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, unhealthy food is cheaper.
Yep.
He's going to spend less money on education for them.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to spend less money on extracurriculars for them. And trust me, this is something that people don't really understand. But things such as arts, team sports, music, all of these things are so important, not only to a child's intellectual development, but to their social development as well.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
And what is part of this we're fighting is the whole concept of that horrendous thought of it was good enough for me when I was a kid, so it's good enough for my kids.
Yeah, that's crap. Yeah.
What we need to do is help these people break the cycle. We need to help, and I hate to say it, but in a lot of cases it is a truth that people who are coming from homes where where their parents have been like John, they end up in that. Because they're behind the 8 ball, they end up...
It's a cycle, yeah.
Yeah, in that same situation themselves.
They're starting behind.
And I hate to say it.
Yeah.
I really hate to say it, but it is something that happens more frequently than not.
Yeah.
And I think it's... this is not like drug testing for the dollars. It's makes that problem worse.
Yeah.
It not only does that, it raises crime rates.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the way I recommend it, because I had actually had a conversation with someone about this the other night, where they were discussing, saying that if you're on the dole, you should always be drug tested and not allowed to drink as well. I was kind of basically putting it to them that you're always going to have a percentage of the population that the way that they're going to do this anyway. Mm-hmm. And even if they're not getting money they get from the government, they're going to get money from you via your television, via your car, your PlayStation. Mm-hmm. What this for a small percentage of people, obviously.
Yeah.
For a certain percentage of people that aren't going to change, this is insurance.
Yeah.
This is... We're paying a couple of $100 in our tax each year to help lessen the chance that someone's going to kick our door in and take our computers.
I don't even think of it sometimes as, some of these people might have a terrible habit. They might not even turn to crime, but they're going to turn to other social services, your lifelines or Vinnies or whatever.
Yeah.
And rely more heavily on them. So it's just putting the burden onto other people. It doesn't fix the problem, whereas we should be looking at fixing the problem. That's what the issue there is, in my mind. It's just pandering. It actually is all it is. It's a policy of just pandering to a demographic that just goes, screw you, I don't think you should get the dole because I don't think you should get the dole.
And because they're under this false belief that if they're spending less on the dole, then that means, if it's a country we spend less on the dole, that means their taxes are going to be less.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work like that. They'll find something else to spend it on.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's plenty of good things that we can throw the money into. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another issue that's happening with where welfare recipients are going to be hurt is with they're introducing the cashless debit card into more locations.
Yeah.
And I think that's again I've spoken before about how I think that actually is more harm than good. Like I understand, that's a heart in the right place with that, but it doesn't actually work.
I just think it demonizes people.
Absolutely.
Genuine people. Okay, yes, I can see the argument that you would use a cashless card for, say, a hardcore drug addict or something so they can't buy the thing. I can see the argument. I don't agree with it, but I can see the argument. But by introducing that, in a lot bigger way, you're just demonizing people. Just genuine people who can't find work, and there are those out there. What about... I can tell you examples of, I would have 64-year-old men who'd been labourers or construction workers their entire lives, on my caseload, to try to find them work. There's no work out there for them, or very little.
Absolutely.
They basically just tick off until they hit 65 and can move to the pension. And as sucky as that is, and as crap as that is, all you're going to do is demonise those people by doing that. Or the ones that are on the disability support pension. Well, that's a disability support. It's a pension. We shouldn't be penalising people who are on a pension.
Absolutely.
It's crap. It's ill thought out rubbish. It's just absolute rubbish. Anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did have one more loser.
Yep.
For this one.
Cool.
And this is, not in the same category.
Yep.
Of importance, I guess you'd say.
Yep.
But it is people who consume media.
Okay.
Basically, what's been announced for this budget is that free-to-air networks are having their annual license fees abolished and replaced with a much smaller payment. Mm-hmm. So saving $90 million a year.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that this is literally an incentive to go the wrong way. Because currently, if you don't know how the way the television industry in particular works, we've had what is basically a duopoly in Australia for a long time.
Yep.
They own the rights to anything that you're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
And because we've only got 5 television stations and only 3 of them of any import to viewers.
Yeah. Commercial import, yeah.
Yes, we get told exactly this is what you're going to watch.
Yep.
You have a choice between football, reality show 1 and reality show 2.
Yep.
At the moment.
Yep.
Oh, what's that? You want to watch NCIS? Yeah, we're gonna make you wait 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm.
We're gonna make you wait 6 to 8 weeks after the rest of the world has seen it. And saving these, the best thing that we can do is let these dinosaurs really die out, because they can't compete with the new media competitors such as Google, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Now, Stars, Amazon TV. These dinosaurs need to be let die. They need to die out. If they cannot change their business model to compete, which is what they need to do, because their current business model is terrible. But so instead, what is the government doing but abolishing a license fee to allow them to continue to compete with a broken business model?
Yep.
There's another thing, and this is something that is going to be quite controversial, and I don't think that you and I are going to see eye to eye on this one.
Cool, because I disagree with you about the first part too. But
awesome.
Go on. That's all right. Go first, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong.
I do not agree with the banning of gambling advertisement during live sport broadcasts. Having seen the internals of the sports entertainment industry in Australia, outside of rugby league, they need every dollar they can get. Outside of rugby league and cricket, really. Those are your two big ones. They are making money hand over fist.
Correct.
However, all the other codes, all the other sports in Australia need as much help as they can get, need as much money and sponsorship as they can get. So many codes are struggling. Basketball is struggling. Like, I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but for the last 15 years, the NBL has been an absolute mess, with clubs going out of business on a year-by-year basis. You know,
it's sports a tough business.
Well, it's a very tough business, and to take away a bunch of sponsors that want to just drop ridiculous amounts of money, all to satisfy a group of people who are complaining about other people's decisions. That's ridiculous.
I was under the impression they're only banning it before 8:30 at night. After 8:30, you can still broadcast.
Just not during the live ones.
Just not during the live broadcasts, and you can still sponsor the events. You just can't. Basically, from what I understood, they were cutting out the like at the beginning of a rugby league game. I know they flick to Bet 123, as it might be what it's called, or Tabcorp or one of those, and get the.
I believe it's UBet.
UBet. Yeah. So anyway, one of the betting companies to get the latest odds on the game. I don't like that, because the odds of the game are not based on the game, and they're not based on anything like that. They're based on how much money is being put behind a team or not. So it's actually not a good indication of whether a team's going to win or not. So, you know, I actually don't really disagree with you on that. I didn't have a problem when they banned smoking ads, but I think you got to appreciate whether it's a good business model or not, and I don't think it is a good business model. I can only speak to rugby league because it's the only sport I really follow, but I know that New South Wales Rugby League is dependent practically solely on the pokie machine revenue coming out of the league's clubs. I think you've got to be very careful how much we start to hit the financial basis of the game. Also, you know, the NRL, for example, paid $2 billion, or got paid $2 billion for the TV rights deal, which probably included the gambling ads and stuff, and now we're then impacting on Fox and Channel 9, who broadcast it, to recoup their money in advertising, because that's what, you know, that's how they make their money. So, well, Channel 9 particularly. So, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I wish there was a better way than funding our game and our sports through gambling or, you know, alcohol and cigarettes and all that sort of stuff. And we've done all right on the other ones, but you need to have a whole of game or whole of sport look at gambling and gambling advertising before you start just randomly banning things so that you can get Nick Xenophon's votes in the Senate for other stuff, which is about... oh, well, let's be honest, that's what that's about.
I think you just nailed it right there.
That's, and, you know, he's got his issue. He said it didn't go far enough, but, you know, crossbencher's never happy. I will disagree with you about abolishing the license fee. The reason I don't agree with the license fee is because it is penalising these traditional networks in the face of Facebook, Netflix, Google, etc., who don't pay this license fee. these new media already have an advantage in a legal sense within the Australian system over the free-to-air networks, and they don't have to abide by the other rules, like the two out of three, rule, or the 75% reach rule, which means that you can only reach 75% of the population, or, you can only own 2 out of 3 of the major media businesses in an area. They're not affected by that. They're online, so none of those... I don't see it as helping the new guys, which I think is sort of the way I sort of read what you were saying, is, we're abolishing the fee to...
well, no, they're abolishing the fee to help them compete against the new guys.
Yeah, but I don't feel it's helping them compete against the new guys. I feel it's just levelling the playing field. I think these new guys have an unfair advantage, and removing the licence fee just levels it. Here's
what all of these companies could do. Here's what Channel 9, Southern Cross Austereo, here's what the Nine Corporation, here's what they could do. Stop broadcasting, or keep broadcasting, but create a video on demand service on the internet. Stream.
Well, all of them do have catch up, because I watch.
Catch up's not quite the same.
No, it's not quite the same, but yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, Foxtel and Seven tried that with Presto, and it didn't work.
Presto didn't work because they tried to do it with the same model of, we got to make sure that this doesn't impact our actual broadcasting.
I think over, and this is just me speculating, but I think over the next 10 years maybe, if streaming stays as dominant as it is, or becomes even more dominant, and I see it going that way, I think you'll find the major networks will stay around, but they will basically be sports, news, and reality.
Isn't that pretty much what they are now?
They're getting that way. I think they're moving that way. Channel 10 probably more so than the other two, but I see it going that way. Maybe even not news and current affairs. I think things that are not pre-recorded are going to be the only things that are going to be worth buying. I mean, I don't know how true this is, but I've read somewhere that the reason that Foxtel is around is because of the sports rights that they have. So, people get Foxtel for all the different footballs. I do. I get Foxtel for the league because I get all 8 games every weekend live. And I prefer the commentators, but, that's a different side of the story. But,
well, here's actually a question I have for you.
Yeah.
Does the NRL have a Game Pass system?
Yeah, you can get on the Telstra.
The NBL's got NBL.TV. NFL's got, over in America, the NFL, all 4 majors have got their own things. And these are run by the leagues themselves.
Yeah.
Where you can stream on demand every game live. I mean, yes. I have the NFL one. It is absolutely amazing. I can watch 8 games simultaneously.
Look, I know that...
Well, I had internet that worked that well.
I know the feeling. There is, you can do it through the NRL site. I've never done it because I've always had Foxtel. And I don't think it would be as advanced as showing all 8 games at the same time but then they don't show them at the same time. They still space them out with the broadcast deals so that Fox can show them one after the other and still be live. So, look, I think just a slightly changed course, but still talking sport and broadcasters and stuff, there is a massive increase in funding for the screening of women's sport, which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
I have thoroughly been enjoying on Fox in the representative round last weekend where Australia played New Zealand, is they showed the Australian and New Zealand women's game before it in the league.
That was a better game.
I wouldn't go that far, but it was
I'm sorry,
good.
I enjoyed that game a lot more.
Oh, there was some great hits. There was some skill. There was some serious skill, and there was some serious rugby league ability. So,
you know what there was in comparison to the guys' game?
Yeah.
Defense.
Well, there was no defense from the Kiwis in the guys' game, that's for sure. Yeah.
There was defense. There was a greater attempt at tactics on defense.
Yeah.
And I think it was it came across to me like both teams had scouted each other's players a lot better than the guys did. For my money, that was a much more enjoyable game to watch. And I get that I'm also quite old-fashioned with my sport, where I'd rather see a game that's decided by the D than the offense.
Yep.
You know, I can live without my basketball games being 120 points aside if I can watch a team like the San Antonio Spurs or the Memphis Grizzlies just grind on D.
Yeah, look, I like a good game on defense. That's one of the things I've been enjoying about the Broncos this year. I think the defense has been amazing, except in the first 10 minutes last weekend, but which was disgraceful. But you know, I very much enjoyed the women's game, as you said. You know,
absolutely. And I've enjoyed. Like, I'm not a cricket fan by any means, but I've enjoyed the fact that they've been putting on the ladies 2020 games.
Yes.
You know, over the summer, I thought that was a fantastic thing, and I've actually seen, like, you know, I only ever see it happening in bars when I'm playing, but I've seen more interest in the game of cricket itself, because people have been having discussions about it because the women's games have been on. And absolutely. I think it's great. I mean, hell, we look at Australia. We have got, in basketball, we have got one of the best women's leagues in the world. We have absolutely. An amazing women's basketball league in this country. We have one of the top netball leagues in the world.
Yeah.
Which just as an aside, I would love to see a professional mixed comp.
Yeah.
At that level, I think that would be.
I think you can do that in netball. It's a sort of game that you can have a mixed comp.
I play in a mixed comp.
Yeah, I just mean at professional levels. I think quite easily you can do it. One thing I'm excited about the rugby league this year is it's a rugby league World Cup at the end of the season, and the Women's World Cup is playing concurrently to the Men's World Cup, and both the grand final is both played at Suncorp Stadium, I believe, and one game after the other.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
So that will be fantastic. That's in December, but that'll be amazing. I think I'm really looking forward to that. I'd love to get tickets and go, but you know.
I was going to ask if you'd been hunting them down.
I don't know if they're on sale yet. I still got State of Origin to get through.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Well, I think we might leave it at that. I know there was a lot in the budget that we didn't discuss.
Absolutely.
And if there's anything that our listeners want us to talk about in future episodes, from the budget or from other things, please drop us a line. Hit us up on Facebook. Hit us up on Twitter at AustrAlien Pod, spelled alien like our show title. You can hit us up on Facebook at the AustrAlien Podcast and our fan page there. Or alternatively, you can hit us up on our personal Twitters, with mine being at TJRule34.
And my being at Sean Mills 100. That's SHAWN.
And as always, if you enjoyed what you heard, please feel free to leave a review on iTunes. It helps us out so much. It really, really, really allows us to get more out more frequently, because we start to get noticed and we start to get more feedback.
Yep.
And is there any last words you wanted to have, Mr. Mills?
No, I guess just thanks for listening. Just from me as well, I love the support we get, and as TJ has said, we want to grow this as much as we can. So, get our opinions out there, and your opinions. We'd love for people to give us ideas and thoughts and topics to talk about, because one thing you've probably learned over the 6 episodes we've done, I have an opinion on everything. So,
absolutely. And we want to know, are the topics that we're talking about, are the topics that are of particular import to us, are they important to you as well? Yep. Are there other things that you might find to be more important that you would like to hear us discuss, please let us know.
Absolutely.
Give us some, talk to us on social media. We will absolutely speak. We will absolutely speak back.
Absolutely. Reply within the hour. Unless it's the middle of the night. And then TJ might reply within the hour.
Well, that's the difference. That's when I'm awake. Anyway, so thank you again for listening. Yeah. As always, my name's TJ.
I'm Sean.
And we will catch you guys next time.